TC. Let's start. 242, Chapter 18 Number. Analysis. People behave in highly predictable ways when they experience certain thoughts. When they agree, they nod their heads. So far, no surprise, but according to an area of research known as proprioceptive psychology, the process also works in reverse. Get people to behave in a certain way and you cause them to have certain thoughts. The idea was initially controversial, but fortunately it was supported by a compelling experiment. Participants in a study were asked to fixate on various products moving across a large computer screen and then indicate whether the items appealed to them. Some of the items moved vertically, causing the participants to nod their heads while watching, and others moved horizontally, resulting in a side-to-side head movement. Participants preferred vertically moving products without being aware that their yes and no head movements had played a key role in their decisions. In one study, participants responded favorably to products on a computer screen when they moved their heads up and down, which showed that their decisions were unconsciously influenced by their behavior. MTC. Good job. MTC. Let's start. 242, Chapter 18 Number. 01. In 2006, researchers conducted a study on the motivations for helping after the September 11 terrorist attacks against the United States. 20069.11. In the study, they found that individuals who gave money, blood, goods, or other forms of assistance because of other focused motives, giving to reduce another's discomfort, were almost 4 times more likely to still be giving support 1 year later than those whose original motivation was to reduce personal distress. This effect likely stems from differences in emotional arousal. The events of September 11 emotionally affected people throughout the United States. 9.11. Those who gave to reduce their own distress reduced their emotional arousal with their initial gift, discharging that emotional distress. However, those who gave to reduce others' distress did not stop empathizing with victims who continued to struggle long after the attacks. A study found that the act of giving was less likely to be sustained when driven by self-centered motives rather than by other focused motives, possibly because of the decline in emotional arousal. MTC. Good job. MTC. Let's start. 242, Chapter 18 Number. 02. A young child may be puzzled when asked to distinguish between the directions of right and left. But that same child may have no difficulty in determining the directions of up and down or back and front. Scientists propose that this occurs because, although we experience 3 dimensions, only 2 had a strong influence on our evolution, the vertical dimension as defined by gravity and, in mobile species, the front/back dimension as defined by the positioning of sensory and feeding mechanisms. These influence our perception of vertical versus horizontal, far versus close, and the search for dangers from above, such as an eagle, or below, such as a snake. However, the left-right axis is not as relevant in nature. A bear is equally dangerous from its left or the right side, but not if it is upside down. In fact, when observing a scene containing plants, animals, and man-made objects such as cars or street signs, we can only tell when left and right have been inverted if we observe those artificial items. Having affected the evolution of our spatial perception, vertical and front/back dimensions are easily perceived, but the left-right axis, which is not significant in nature, doesn't come instantly to us. MTC. Good job. MTC. Let's start. 242, Chapter 18 Number. 03. A study investigated the economic cost of prejudice based on blind assumptions. Researchers gave a group of Danish teenagers the choice of working with one of 2 people. The teenager had never met either of them. One of the people had a name that suggested they were from a similar ethnic or religious background to the teenager. The other had a name that suggested they were from a different ethnic or religious background. The study showed that the teenagers were prepared to earn an average of 8% less if they could work with someone they thought came from the same ethnic or religious background. 8%. And this prejudice was evident among teenagers with ethnic majority names as well as those with ethnic minority names. The teenagers were blindly making assumptions about the race of their potential colleagues. They then applied prejudice to those assumptions, to the point where they actually allowed that prejudice to reduce their own potential income. The job required the two teenagers to work together for just 90 minutes. 90. A study in which teenagers expressed a preference to work with someone of a similar background, even at a financial cost to themselves, suggests that an assumption-based prejudice can outweigh rational economic behavior. MTC. Good job. MTC. Let's start. 242, Chapter 18 Number 04. Greenwashing involves misleading a consumer into thinking a good or service is more environmentally friendly than it really is. Greenwashing ranges from making environmental claims required by law, and therefore irrelevant, CFC-free for example, to puffery, exaggerating environmental claims, to fraud. CFC-free. Researchers have shown that claims on products are often too vague or misleading. Some products are labeled chemical-free, when the fact is everything contains chemicals, including plants and animals. Products with the highest number of misleading or unverifiable claims were laundry detergents, household cleaners, and paints. Environmental advocates agree there is still a long way to go to ensure shoppers are adequately informed about the environmental impact of the products they buy. The most common reason for greenwashing is to attract environmentally conscious consumers. Many consumers do not find out about the false claims until after the purchase. Therefore, greenwashing may increase sales in the short term. However, this strategy can seriously backfire when consumers find out they are being deceived. While greenwashing might bring a company profits temporarily by deceiving environmentally conscious consumers, the company will face serious trouble when the consumers figure out they were misinformed. MTC. Good job. MTC. Let's start. 242, Chapter 18 Number 05. The great irony of performance psychology is that it teaches each sportsman to believe, as far as he is able, that he will win. No man doubts. No man indulges his inner skepticism. That is the logic of sports psychology. But only one man can win. That is the logic of sport. Note the difference between a scientist and an athlete. Doubt is a scientist's stock in trade. Progress is made by focusing on the evidence that refutes a theory and by improving the theory accordingly. Skepticism is the rocket fuel of scientific advance. But doubt, to an athlete, is poison. Progress is made by ignoring the evidence. It is about creating a mindset that is immune to doubt and uncertainty. Just to reiterate. From a rational perspective, this is nothing less than crazy. Why should an athlete convince himself he will win when he knows that there is every possibility he will lose? Because, to win, one must proportion one's belief, not to the evidence, but to whatever the mind can usefully get away with. Unlike scientists whose skeptical attitude is needed to make scientific progress, sports psychology says that to succeed, athletes must eliminate feelings of uncertainty about whether they can win. MTC. Good job. MTC. Let's start. 242, Chapter 18 Number 06. Distance is a reliable indicator of the relationship between two people. Strangers stand further apart than do acquaintances, acquaintances stand further apart than friends, and friends stand further apart than romantic partners. Sometimes, of course, these rules are violated. Recall the last time you rode 20 stories in an elevator packed with total strangers. 20. The sardine-like experience no doubt made the situation a bit uncomfortable. With your physical space violated, you may have tried to create psychological space by avoiding eye contact, focusing instead on the elevator buttons. By reducing closeness in one nonverbal channel, eye contact, one can compensate for unwanted closeness in another channel, proximity. Similarly, if you are talking with someone who is seated several feet away at a large table, you are likely to maintain constant eye contact, something you might feel uncomfortable doing if you were standing next to each other. Physical distance between people is determined by relationship status, but when the distance is not appropriate, people adjust their nonverbal communication to establish a comfortable psychological distance. MTC. Good job. MTC. Let's start. 242, Chapter 18, Number 07. In a study, Guy Mayraz, a behavioral economist, showed his experimental subjects graphs of a price rising and falling over time. Guy Mayraz. The graphs were actually of past changes in the stock market, but Mayraz told people that the graphs showed recent changes in the price of wheat. Mayraz. He asked each person to predict where the price would move next and offered them a reward if their forecasts came true. But Mayraz had also divided his participants into two categories, farmers and bakers. Mayraz. Farmers would be paid extra if wheat prices were high. Bakers would earn a bonus if wheat was cheap. So the subjects might earn two separate payments, one for an accurate forecast, and a bonus if the price of wheat moved in their direction. Mayraz found that the prospect of the bonus influenced the forecast itself. Mayraz. The farmers hoped and predicted that the price of wheat would rise. The bakers hoped for and predicted the opposite. They let their hopes influence their reasoning. When participants were asked to predict the price change of wheat, their wish for where the price would go, which was determined by the group they belonged to, affected their predictions. MTC. Good job. MTC. Let's start. 242, Chapter 18, Number 08. Music is used to mold customer experience and behavior. A study was conducted that explored what impact it has on employees. Results from the study indicate that participants who listened to rhythmic music were inclined to cooperate more irrespective of factors like age, gender, and academic background, compared to those who listened to less rhythmic music. This positive boost in the participants' willingness to cooperate was induced regardless of whether they liked the music or not. When people are in a more positive state of mind, they tend to become more agreeable and creative, while those on the opposite spectrum tend to focus on their individual problems rather than giving attention to solving group problems. The rhythm of music has a strong pull on people's behavior. This is because when people listen to music with a steady pulse, they tend to match their actions to the beat. This translates to better teamwork when making decisions because everyone is following one tempo. According to the study, the music played in workplaces can lead employees to be cooperative because the beat of the music creates a shared rhythm for working. MTC. Good job. MTC. Let's start. 242, Chapter 18, Number 09. At the University of Iowa, students were briefly shown numbers that they had to memorize. Iowa. Then they were offered the choice of either a fruit salad or a chocolate cake. When the number the students memorized was 7 digits long, 63% of them chose the cake. 63%. When the number they were asked to remember had just 2 digits, however, 59% opted for the fruit salad. 59%. Our reflective brains know that the fruit salad is better for our health, but our reflexive brains desire that soft, fattening chocolate cake. If the reflective brain is busy figuring something else out like trying to remember a 7-digit number, then impulse can easily win. On the other hand, if we're not thinking too hard about something else, with only a minor distraction like memorizing 2 digits, then the reflective system can deny the emotional impulse of the reflexive side. According to the above experiment, the increased intellective load on the brain leads the reflexive side of the brain to become dominant. MTC. Good job. MTC. Let's start. 242, Chapter 18, Number 10. In 2011, Micah Edelson and his colleagues conducted an interesting experiment about external factors of memory manipulation. 2011 Micah Edelson. In their experiment, participants were shown a 2-minute documentary film and then asked a series of questions about the video. 2. Directly after viewing the videos, participants made few errors in their responses and were correctly able to recall the details. 4 days later, they could still remember the details and didn't allow their memories to be swayed when they were presented with any false information about the film. 4. This changed, however, when participants were shown fake responses about the film made by other participants. Upon seeing the incorrect answers of others, participants were also drawn toward the wrong answers themselves. Even after they found out that the other answers had been fabricated and didn't have anything to do with the documentary, it was too late. The participants were no longer able to distinguish between truth and fiction. They had already modified their memories to fit the group. According to the experiment, when participants were given false information itself, their memories remained stable, but their memories were falsified when they were exposed to other participants' fake responses. MTC. Good job. MTC. Let's start. 242, Chapter 18, Number 11. Some researchers at Sheffield University recruited 129 hobbyists to look at how the time spent on their hobbies shaped their work life. Sheffield 129. To begin with, the team measured the seriousness of each participant's hobby, asking them to rate their agreement with statements like "I regularly train for this activity," and also assessed how similar the demands of their job and hobby were. Then, each month for 7 months, participants recorded how many hours they had dedicated to their activity, and completed a scale measuring their belief in their ability to effectively do their job, or their self-efficacy. 7. The researchers found that when participants spent longer than normal doing their leisure activity, their belief in their ability to perform their job increased. But this was only the case when they had a serious hobby that was dissimilar to their job. When their hobby was both serious and similar to their job, then spending more time on it actually decreased their self-efficacy. Research suggests that spending more time on serious hobbies can boost confidence at work if the hobbies and the job are sufficiently different. MTC. Good job. MTC. Let's start. 242, Chapter 18, Number 12. Why do we help? One widely held view is that self-interest underlies all human interactions, that our constant goal is to maximize rewards and minimize costs. Accountants call it cost-benefit analysis. Philosophers call it utilitarianism. Social psychologists call it social exchange theory. If you are considering whether to donate blood, you may weigh the costs of doing so, time, discomfort, and anxiety, against the benefits, reduced guilt, social approval, and good feelings. If the rewards exceed the costs, you will help. Others believe that we help because we have been socialized to do so, through norms that prescribe how we ought to behave. Through socialization, we learn the reciprocity norm, the expectation that we should return help, not harm, to those who have helped us. In our relations with others of similar status, the reciprocity norm compels us to give, in favors, gifts, or social invitations, about as much as we receive. People help because helping gives them advantages, but also because they are socially learned to repay what others have done for them. MTC. Good job.